What if you could deliver an ad to someone the moment they walk past your competitor's door? That's the power of geofencing marketing. And in this episode, we're breaking down 5 of the best campaigns ever to do it. From boosting foot traffic overnight to turning location data into loyal customers. We'll uncover how they used precision targeting, timing, and creative messaging to drive results. You'll learn 1. What made each campaign work. 2. How you can apply the same strategies to your own local marketing. And 3, why location-based advertising remains one of the most effective small business marketing tools today. Whether you're new to digital marketing or looking to level up your local reach, this episode will show you how to turn proximity into profit and bring more customers through your doors. Matt Hansen.
What's going on, Jim?
I'm Jim Diedlow. You're listening to the Mastering Local Marketing Podcast, episode 83. Matt's a digital marketing professor, and I'm not sure if it was in a class or after a class that I took his classes at Purdue Northwest, where he's a professor, and got my MBA with a emphasis in marketing. I remember after one of the classes, now I think about it, Matt Hansen's talking to me and a couple other students, and he's like so excited about this new thing where you could drive by in your car or walk by a business and they could know that you're there, and then they could target you with an ad, whether from that business or, better yet, this is how his mind works, how a competitor could target you as you walk in front or drive in front of that competitor's business. All I could think about was privacy concerns and my own phone and that kind of stuff. But the first day he heard about it was years ago, was excited about it, and is just as excited about geofencing right now.
It's because I hear people asking me about it constantly, right? So it, for some reason, it goes into people's heads, and they all have to ask me about it. So I just flew back from Atlanta, Georgia, and we were having some conversations down there, and I was talking to some other people in some other universities. We had visited Georgia Tech and kind of their AI manufacturing facility and all this other stuff. But geofencing is still a buzzword that everyone is asking me about. And a couple of people were saying, well, how does it work and all these other things? And to put it into perspective, you and I are sitting in a chair at this point, and if I wanted to, I could literally drop an ad right on top of the chair that you're sitting in, and anyone that sits in that chair over the next whatever amount of days that I'm targeting will start to see my ads going forward, right? So that's really what geofencing is. We draw this imaginary little line around a certain location, and think of going into Google Maps and drawing lines around a building or even an office, which I've actually done in the past. I've literally dropped an ad on top of an office where I knew somebody I wanted to see my ad sits every day, right? So you can get very specific on it, right? So if Jim's sitting in his home tomorrow, I could literally target just Jim for the next 365 days, and you're going to go, why am I seeing so many of your ads? There's a reason. But today I wanted to kind of talk about some of the really fun geofencing type things that you can do with some examples. And like I said, it's nothing more than taking, on the most simplistic way of looking at it, a Google map, right? And just drawing a line around a building or around a little area. And that's what we can do. We can target individuals that walk into there. Or, as you'll hear, we can do some really fun things with timing.
So this podcast, if you're listening to us, you know that it is mostly for the small and medium-sized business, maybe a marketing department picks up some stuff. I've noticed that also. But my first inclination other than the fact that we're associated with you, is that this is too expensive and would require too much technological expertise. Are either of those true?
No, neither one of them are true at this point. I mean, yes, you can talk about programmatic and social targeting based on drawing different, areas on a map. We can also talk about mobile apps, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's too expensive." A mobile app is very simple today. I mean, you can probably get the designers of mobile apps at this point are using so much AI that the cost is drastically dropped. So I mean, you can go out there and get a $2,000 app put together, no problem.
That used to cost 80 grand.
Used to cost.
I
80
remember
grand.
I got an 80
Yeah.
grand quote on doing a special app I wanted like 5 years ago, and I'm like, is it really 80 grand?
Yeah.
Well, it was. It was an expertise. AI can actually write that app for you.
Yeah. Today, I mean, the developers that you talk with will tell you, I can't charge you 80 grand anymore because 80% of the app is being written by AI, and we just go in and clean it up. So the prices have drastically come down. So today we'll talk a little bit about apps, but we'll also talk about the programmatic side and social, and how just something that you already have access to from an advertising platform, you can literally just turn it on.
So it's not that expensive. It doesn't take that much technological expertise. One thing you might want to have a little bit of familiarity with is the 3x3 grid that you went through in your classes and still do. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so what I always tell people is you can literally go down to like a 3 foot by 3 foot grid anywhere you want to be. So when you look down at the tiles that are in your kitchen or in your office or wherever, each one of those are typically a foot wide, right? So count 3 across and 3 forward, and that's literally how we can get that small into what we're doing. That's what I'm familiar with. We may be able to go farther than that at this point, but really understanding that you can target any single location you want very simply. So do you want to target your existing customers? Do you want to, are there certain businesses that you want to target? Are there competitors that you want to go after? And I love doing that. You'll hear one story about how I targeted a certain type of company and how I did it today. So, there are all these different ways to use it, but it's really just how creative can you get? And, are you willing to take the steps to do it?
Let's talk some ways some people use this. The Hijack Shoe app.
I've been telling this story for years. So this was probably, 15 years ago, and this was a mobile app. And basically what they did is it's a shoe company, right? A retail shoe store that had a mobile app. And when you walked into a Nike or an Adidas store, or a Foot Locker or anything like that, it would trigger a countdown to those that had the app, right? And it was like, if I walk into Foot Locker, it may notify me. It'll pop up on my screen, and it starts at 100, and it counts down in seconds. And by the time you get back to their store, whatever seconds are left on the timer is what percentage off you got in their store. So think of this. I walk into Foot Locker. I'm on the other side of what we used to call malls, right? And literally it triggers and said, okay, you have 100% off, and the countdown is started, right? So people were literally running across the mall to get back. And as they crossed the front of the store, it would trigger and it would say, 27% or 27 seconds left. That's what they got, was 27% off their purchase from that. So what they were doing is they were geofencing their competitors. And once they walked across that line, it triggered the app and it would send people running back to their store. I loved it. I thought it was a unique way of doing it. Yes, you're giving discounts, but I mean, how fun is that, right? You just see people running through the mall. You have no idea what's going on, but that's how you create real loyalty for your existing customers.
Too bad we don't go to malls as much anymore. But hey, Burger King and McDonald's, that used to be the main competition amongst fast food. Right. Certainly, there's some fast casual. Namely, right around here, right up the street here is Portillo's. Right up the street is Chick-fil-A. I mean, they're all right up Indianapolis Boulevard. Here we are in Hammond, Indiana. But Burger King and McDonald's went at it at one point. Right. And who won?
I don't know if anyone won, to be honest, but in Burger King always utilized a lot of technology. And a while back, they launched a social campaign to try and get people to download their mobile app, right? Because, I mean, any of these fast food companies now, they want you to download the app. It gets you to come in more often.
And you get to put your favorite meal in there, and you just click it, and it's like, all right, I just clicked it. I'll be over there in 3 minutes, and boom.
Right. So what Burger King did was they launched this social campaign to download their mobile app, but what they told you was, we are going to be offering you 1 cent. I believe it was Whoppers back in the day. But it was triggered when somebody would walk through a McDonald's. It would trigger that you could get a 1 cent Whopper, and it was driving traffic back, right? And you're sitting there and you're probably saying, well, that, they're already at McDonald's. Why wouldn't they just buy from there? Yeah, that is true. But you're getting that 1 cent Whopper to come back out of Burger King, and it's really not that hard. I mean, typically McDonald's, Burger King are very close to each other. But this idea, everyone always criticizes everything, right? But this idea actually increased their mobile app downloads by 1.5 million, right? So a simple campaign using geofencing over all of the McDonald's was actually driving downloads of their mobile app, which is the main goal of what they were looking for. They don't care about the 1 cent Whopper, right? That's a temporary loss that they're going to have. But in the long run, now they have the app on their phone. Now they're more inclined to keep it and order from it and things like that. So in reality, what they're doing is they're dropping this geofence. They're buying new customers. They're buying the ability to get people to download their app, which is going to lead to more of a long-term revenue model. And I don't know. I always thought that one was really interesting.
Greek's Pizzeria.
So this one's a different take. We've all ordered pizza. We ordered pizza, I think, 2 weeks ago. And this kind of is what's happening. So they identified the customers that were local to them, right? So competing for the same customers. I mean, nobody drives an hour for pizza. It's relatively close. So what they did is they dropped geofencing on top of all of their competitors, but they put it on a long-term trigger. So instead of getting a notification or seeing ads for the pizzeria right then and there, they delayed it by 2 weeks. So you walked in, and then 2 weeks later, you start seeing the ads again. Because most people, unless you're a college student, don't have pizza every night, right? So you get pizza today. In 2 weeks, maybe you start to think, all right, let's get another pizza. That's what happened. So they triggered the ads to start populating 2 weeks later once people started to think about getting pizza again, because we don't buy pizza every weekend, right? I mean, I get it that it's football season, but still, like, most people don't get pizza every weekend. So the idea was just, let's delay the ads, wait 2 weeks, and then trigger it. And it's funny because the success of this campaign, and it works, right? People start to order, and they saw a drastic uptick, but it's that delayed advertising that continues to work beyond just a 2 week, right? So like if we walk in today, 2 weeks later, you and I are going to see the ad. But if somebody walks in next weekend, it's 2 weeks after that. So it's continually pushing out those ads farther and farther and farther, but it's still using the same campaign, the same geofence.
What kind of information people went, somewhere else to get a pizza? What kind of information is Greek's Pizzeria able to glean from that person who went there?
Yeah, basically it pulls from the device that you are, that you're walking through that geofence, right? So it knows, it identifies that individual, I guess we'll call it computer, and will trigger based off of that. So, a lot of people get really weirded out with geofencing. They think like, they know it's me. They know all these details about it. That's not the case. I mean, Apple and Samsung and all of them, we have what's called, like a mobile ID on our phones, but it's anonymous. Nobody knows who you are. They just know that it's tied to that phone. So like nobody's going to know that as I take my phone with me everywhere and I walk through a geofence, nobody's going to know it's, Matt Hansen, I live at this and, all this other stuff. it's anonymous, but it knows that the device itself has triggered that geofence, so it will serve to that device. So a lot of people get really weirded out. They're like, oh, I feel like it, Big Brother's watching over. It's watching over your phone, your computer, those types of things. It's not watching over you. So just keep that in mind. It sounds a little creepy, and I always have to tell everyone, like, I know from a marketer I sound creepy, but I don't know, what time you went to bed last night.
It was the very first time you knew of geofencing or really kind of saw exactly how localized it could get. It was a little bit creepy how excited you were. I mean, I'm not creeped out that you're going to know, that I keep looking for Land's End jeans and Thursday boots. And those guys are amazing. As soon as I look for Land's End, I can just count on it, seeing it for 2 weeks. Same thing with Thursday boots.
They're retargeting you.
They're retargeting, and they're a competitor of Red Wing. And I went into Red Wing yesterday. I was getting a haircut next door, and I walked in. Now I'm getting hit even harder with Land's End because they knew I was at Red Wings.
They could.
Yeah. Hey, Navy Credit Union. You see them a lot on television and radio and on your Facebook feed and that kind of stuff, but they got pretty good at geofencing.
Yeah, so they've used a company that I've actually partnered with in the past for some campaigns where they do it's Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash cars, and they wrap the cars. So they'll do like the whole car. They'll do just like the doors. They have different levels that you can do. But the cool part is, right, like everything is tied back to digital, so you can track everything every place they're driving. You can actually tell them, hey, at this time from 1 to 3, I want you to be in this location. So again, we're in football season. The Bears game, I believe, is at noon this Sunday, right? So, at noon, I could say, I want you guys driving around Soldier Field from, let's say, 10 to noon, and they will do that, and those cars will drive around with your ad on the side of the car. And you're like, okay, that's not really great. But they have the ability with a computerized system in the car to actually read your phone, and then we can actually then start to target you after the fact. So we know we drove by you. It triggers that I hit your phone. Your phone can then be targeted from here on out, however long I want it to run. But Navy Credit Union actually did this, and they had 57,000 plus cars that they drove, or people that they drove by, right? Not cars, people. And in doing that, they actually traced it back to, it was like a 1.7% of those 57,000 people actually went to their website. So think about that. Like you wrap a car, you're driving the car past an audience. The audience may or may not have seen you, but now we have the ID of your phone, which then triggers ads in a digital space, in that just by doing that and showing those ads to you, we've already triggered a 1.7 and some change % traffic back to our website. So it's taking the real world and it's taking the digital world and it's meshing it all into one. Now, I don't know about you, but a programmatic ad typically has like a 0.5% or maybe even less, like a 0.1% click-through rate. We're talking 1.7% on this campaign, which is social media advertising click-through rates. And this is a physical car driving around using the data that it's getting from your phone. It's pretty cool. I don't know. I love that one.
Actually, in one of the previous episodes, we talked about click-through rate on emails. I had no idea that it was so much higher than
huge.
So. Yeah, we go back. I don't even know what number that was, but you'll get those numbers. Finally, since my wife is a lawyer and a number of them are involved in, her associates are involved in criminal law and in PI, injuries and that kind of stuff. They have found some creative ways to advertise, and one of them is geofencing. Mm-hmm. Specifically, if you were a criminal lawyer, how would you use this?
So one of my dear friends is a lawyer, and I had to bring in one of my own into this because I'm going to say I'm good at this, right? Sorry, I'm going to pat myself on the back for this.
You
one.
don't have to say it.
No,
Everybody listening.
I'm gonna say it for this
yes.
one, right? Like, so we sat down one day, and he was asking me, he was like, "All right, let's do some marketing. I haven't done any in the past." And I said, "Well, who are we targeting?" And he started talking about DUIs and all the OWI, all this stuff.
DUIs are the easiest money.
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah, it's rinse and repeat. So I said, "Well, we can't target police on the road or anything like that. We can't you can blanket the entire area, but you're hitting a bunch of people that just doesn't make sense." So we started having this conversation. I said, "Well, what about the court system?" And he goes, "Well, the courts, you can't take your phone in, and at that point they're already so deep into it that it doesn't really make sense." And I said, "Okay, well, if you get arrested for driving under the influence, you're going to jail, right? Like, there's no doubt about it, you're going to jail. So why don't we target the jails and the police, the different police municipalities?" And he's like, "Oh, that would be interesting." I said, "All right, well, let's get me a list of who you want to target, and we'll literally just drop it right on top." So what we did is we went on the map, and we drew a nice little geofence around every single police station. And we said, well, we don't want people that have visited this police station more than, I think we said 3 times, because that would be your police officers, your maintenance workers, those types of things, your FedEx, your UPS drivers, all that. We want people that have gone in there once, maybe twice, and that's who we want to target. So we dropped it on top, and we ran an ad just for OWI, DUI. There's two different ways to say it, but and within a week, I think we spent maybe $50. Within a week, we had $8,000 in new revenue come in, and he just kind of went, "That was crazy." And I said, "Yeah, this is kind of what we do." And and I get this conversation a lot from lawyers. They're just like, "How do I do this?" So if you're a lawyer out there, use this to your advantage. And the first thing that you have to do is just go find a programmatic ad company. And there's tons of them out there. They all kind of like circle back to Trade Desk, but there's a ton of them out there. And all you have to do is give them a call. They'll help you set it up. Typically they're, I would say they're probably looking at about a $2,000 minimum spend, but realize you can spread that out over time. So if you want to do an entire year, if you don't want to spend all that money up front, you can do it over a year, but they will literally teach you the system and how to geofence and all of that. So I mean, as much as I love doing all that for everyone, I'm like, some of these vendors have made it so simple. Just go out there and do it yourself.
He's Matt Hansen. I'm Jim Dietlow. This is episode 83, the best geofencing marketing campaigns ever. Hijack, Burger King, Greek's Pizza, Navy Credit Union, and his friend, the lawyer. So any final comments?
No, all I would say is don't run away from new technology. Don't be afraid of it. Again, you're not stealing anyone's social security numbers by doing geofencing. It's literally you're identifying where your customers are, and you're putting the ads right where they need to be instead of just blanketing an entire area.
Until next time, see you later.